Let me start by asking you the obvious question. How much of this numbers are because of the money you raised, did it bring your cost of finance down?
You're bang on. Yes, it did bring the cost of finance down because we mopped up about 358 crores in our IPO during May. So that did help us in bringing our cost of funding down for this quarter. Of course, the other thing is that our productivity is up and our business has gained momentum. If you see the year-on-year increase, almost by about 66%, we stand at about 5,851 crores compared to the 3,513 crores a year back. So that growth of about 66% is in line with our plan, and we propose to grow steadily.
That's the loan book growth, right? And if you could,
yes, that's a gross loan portfolio.
So I'm going to go back to that net interest income in a little while, but since you raised that gross loan portfolio, could you just break it up? Which part has grown most? I know your focus areas are housing, it's MSME kind of space, but is there anything else that you're focusing on now?
Yeah, so our focus definitely is on both the MSME and the housing. Compared to last year, where our gross loan book in terms of the microfinance book was 88%, that has come down to about 86.6%. And in terms of the MSME and the housing, which was at about 11.6%, that has grown to 13.4%.
All right. So doesn't MFI give you a much higher rate of return? Isn't the margin there much higher?
The MFI does have returns, but over a period, as we grow our individual loan book in form of MSME and housing, they will also give us increasing returns.
All right, but is the net interest margin on that segment as high as the MFI space?
See, the portfolio is just growing right now because we are growing it for just the last couple of years, and housing, in fact, has just taken off a year back. So it will remain for time to tell, maybe a couple of quarters or years from now. However, we do expect good returns in the future.
Okay. What is the kind of ticket size? What kind of loans do you give in the housing space? What is the size?
Yeah, so we have in housing two kinds of loans. One is a home improvement loan and the other is a housing loan. So the housing loan ticket size is roughly about 3.5 lakhs or so. And the home improvement loans can range anywhere between 75,000 to roughly about 2 lakhs or so.
And is there a collateral on the home improvement at all?
No, we don't have exactly a collateral. It could be probably, for the extension of an existing building or so. So home improvement loans have been there and experimented for quite a few years from our side, and they have strengthened over the period.
Okay. Let me come back to that net interest income, that very dramatic improvement that we've seen there. Lower cost of funds, obviously your finance costs are lower because of the money you've raised. How many quarters is this money going to be used up in?
Okay, so the money in financing business, it gets deployed pretty fast. So you can as well say that this money has got used up in the regular financing business. And the benefit of that, of course, flowed essentially in this first quarter.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that that the cost of funds should go up from the next quarter, from this quarter onwards, right? From Q2?
The possibilities are there, but on the other hand, our ratings have got upgraded, and we are also seeing the cost of borrowing coming down. So we do hope that there is some impact on that also. Hopefully, we could see some reduction in borrowing cost over the next few quarters also.
Just give me a sense, I'm just going through the numbers. The loan processing fee that you earn, now that has gone down. Could you give us why that has happened?
Okay, so if you see the loan processing fee, which has gone down, just compared to the last quarter, which is the March 16 quarter, right. The reason being that the March quarter had greater disbursements, and the first quarter of this year, traditionally the first quarters of any financial year, have a lower disbursements than the last quarter of the previous financial year.
All right.
And the loan processing fee reduction is directly related to
that. Coming up with a payment bank, I understand that you have a license. What impact does that have on your cost of finance? Is there anything that you gain from starting a payment bank?
No, what we are starting is a small finance bank and not a payment bank.
All right.
And we do foresee that as we start the small finance bank, we will have a significant reduction in the cost of funds, because as a bank, we will have access to funds and funding at lower costs.
Okay. Right now, where do you source your money from, ma'am?
70% of our funding comes from both the private sector and the public sector banks. We also have a diversified sourcing coming through commercial papers, through non-convertible debentures, both from the foreign institutional investors or from the domestic mutual funds. We also do subdebts. We subdebts from organizations like SIDBI, and we also have certain bonds. So these are our various sources of funding.
Okay. Now let me just look
Apart
at
from that, we also do securitization.
All right. Okay. So, and as you start the small finance bank, you're saying that you'll have access to low cost funds, and your cost of funding should go down. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And this quarter, you've used up all the money that you raised through the IPO, and therefore that was almost zero cost virtually. From next quarter, we should expect slightly higher cost of funds. Is that fair? I'm asking that question again. I know you're saying that your rating has gone up, but just as a guidance to our viewers, if you can give us, should one be prepared for that?
So possibilities are there. As I said, it could get netted off, because if the borrowing costs during the next quarter, this quarter does come down to a great essence, that will sort of net off. But there could be a marginal increase, yes.
Okay, now let's just try and understand the story behind the company, and what are your plans? How do you expand? Where do you plan to expand?
So Ujjivan currently with a network of 469 branches across India, probably is the largest and the most diversified microfinance institution currently. We do have branches all across the country, and we are spread across 24 states. What we look at is the branches that we opened in the last couple of years, more than 100 branches or so. There is further scope of expansion on business there. Further, as a small finance bank in the near future, we will also be required to open certain rural unbanked area branches, which is our focus for the next few quarters. So we will be expanding in those areas where there are no branches, particularly in the next few quarters.
So how does that process happen? You'll have to send people down to the villages. You'll probably have to lease a small place to start a branch, or is it just a mobile kind of a network? What are you going to establish?
No, we will have a brick and mortar to start with, and of course they may be lean branches with a minimum of 3 to 4 member staff operating the same. And over a period, as business expands there, we could expand the infrastructure as well as the manpower.
So what would the process be? Again, I'm just trying to understand for our viewers, it's important to understand what the business is at the end of the day. Yes. 2-3 people go to a village, they spend the entire day, they try to canvass people to, make deposits and in their bank, give out loans. They come back in the evening, probably to a town, or maybe spend the night in the branch. They'll have to set up a computer, perhaps. You'll have to have some kind of a connectivity there. What are the costs involved? How does it go? How do you go about doing that?
Right. So we are, in fact, exploring this entire piece right now, where we have identified across various states certain pockets where we could open our branches where there are no other bank branches. And this whole process has a very specific designed time frame, and it is operated in terms of functional expertise coming from admin, coming from vigilance, coming from business, and having identified, as a concept we have branch in a box, having identified the right locations with the right infrastructure, we will set up, and the networking and the basic infrastructure with the computers and online information service is definitely a part and parcel of our rural unbanked branches also. As I said, initially we will
go up a little bit.
No, these branches are going to be set up over a phased manner. So we don't feel that there will be a great impact of this on the cost to income ratio.
Okay. Ma'am, about the MFI, the reason why MFIs thrive obviously is that you are able to charge a higher interest rate, because the person who takes loans from you without any security would otherwise have to go to a money lender who probably would charge 100%. And even if you charge a higher interest rate, it's better for them. now the government, the Prime Minister's vision is to give financial access to everyone, and especially for banks to go in and set up these accounts for everyone, give them access to loans. How much of a competition will that become? How much of a threat will actually big banks, public sector banks entering to this space, being able to give low cost loans to become to MFIs like you?
The financial inclusion penetration leaves a lot to be desired. Our country is vast, and if you see the penetration across our towns and villages, we feel that the banks have still not been able to reach the last mile, and that's the reason where the MFI industry in fact came into the picture, and it has been doing human service for the financial inclusion. Going forward, as we become small finance banks, we see greater opportunities for expanding the scope of financial inclusion. And in terms of competition from banks or other institutions, we at this juncture do not feel that there will be any great degree of competition coming from these institutions. There are large pockets to be served, there are underserved pockets, there are unserved pockets also. And therefore, there is a lot to do for the small finance banks as well as to those banks who are penetrating into the rural and the town and the semi-urban areas.
So, but strategically, you're not preparing for anything. You're saying that there's no immediate threat. You don't have to really change the way in which you function. I understand that you're moving a little bit more towards other segments as well, as you mentioned out, that the MFI segment is gradually decreasing.
So strategically, we do look at from the business viewpoint and take all the necessary precautions which are there in terms of branch diversification and seeing what's the kind of penetration from the other institutions, be it small finance banks or MFIs or the banks which are located nearby.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much for speaking to us and
Thank you.
giving us the data. Thanks a lot.